What's going on, everyone? Today, doing a trade recap. It's Monday, September 18th. I took 3 trades, 100% win rate, NVIDIA calls, Tesla puts. So it was just trading the price action. Obviously, things were weak, but rather than just shorting, because it's all going to be about the patterns, and you'll see in the live trading, just focused on those patterns, took quick scalps, didn't trade big size, and ended up being a nice day. And something that I want to touch on, because I think this is very important, is understanding kind of where you're at psychologically going into the day. So Saturday, I went to a football game and I had a little too much fun. So I'm a little tired. So I knew that coming into today, there's no reason to push it. I don't need to trade big size. It's all about waiting for the levels, waiting for the patterns. And because I'm a little tired, I want to trade smaller and then just take those quick moves, take profits, and then I'm going to call it a day if I'm nicely green, which I was. A lot of people think it's all about coming into every single morning and just trying to swing the bat as hard as you can. You know, I'm a big fan of trying to figure out how I feel mentally going into the day and then trying to basically put together those trades according to that. If for some reason I'm a little tired or I feel a little off, I know that I need to back off a little bit. I'm not going to push it because I've done that before. And when I don't feel 100% and I push it, it usually ends pretty badly. So I made sure to size down today, and then you'll see the percentages and the dollar amounts. I used very little money to be involved in these trades and then came out making a nice profit. Now let's get into the technicals. We'll start with Tesla. Daily chart on the left, 5-minute chart on the right with pre-market data on. So as you can see, the prior day, Tesla looked like it was going to break out and failed, closed a little weak. The main levels that I'm going to be looking at is going to be this prior day low, which is 271, and then obviously prior day high, just in case if it gets there, but I wasn't really leaning to the upside, but just in case if for some reason there's a failed breakdown and then it starts to rip and has a really strong move to the upside, I want to know where prior day high is. So 278.98. So we'll just make that upper level green, and then we'll make the lower level red, right? So prior day high, prior day low. Those are always the levels I'm going to be looking at. And if you look to the right, you can see that it had a pop in the early pre-market and then it sold off aggressively. So 271 was going to be a pretty big level for me. If we stayed below that, there was the possibility that we get some more downside. And obviously, I have no idea what's going to happen or where it's going to go, but just using these levels and then waiting for a pattern. And I did take a trade to the downside on Tesla. I didn't execute great, but I made a few bucks on it. Now let's get into the technicals on NVIDIA. So if you look to the left, pretty aggressive bearish candle on the daily chart. Closed below a lot of support. Not really looking good, below a lot of the moving averages. So the main levels that I'm always going to be looking at is that prior day low, which is 438.08, making that line red. And then obviously knowing where prior day high was, but that was so far away. I did not think we were going to get there, but obviously want to know just in case. 455.99, call it 456, make that line green. We were trading well below prior day low, and we were just trending to the downside in the pre-market. So the next level to the downside was going to be pre-market low, which was right around 427. So those are the main levels that I was going to be looking at. And if for some reason NVIDIA had a push and then it started to roll over, I thought that was going to be a good trade. But there was a pretty crazy candle off the open where it wicked down pretty aggressively, and then it started to kind of hold a bid, and then it had a nice move higher. So that's why, just based on the price action, the technicals, and the patterns, I actually took 2 long trades on this, trading the calls, simply just because even though it was lower, the price action was telling me that it wanted to go higher based on the patterns. And that's why it's very important to know where the levels are at, but really paying attention to that price action real time, because that's going to tell me what a stock potentially wants to do on a shorter time frame. Now to get into the actual trade. So look at that first 2-minute candle on NVIDIA. Almost felt like a stop run. Very aggressive price action to the downside. That's almost an 8-point candle. And then as you can see, that bottoming wick. And then once NVIDIA gets back over 427 and it gets towards those highs, I was looking for an upside opening range break, just for a quick push off the open in case anybody chased that short and got caught. So I ended up taking the 430 calls, only 5 of them, just trading small, and I got a fill price at $7.67. And then as we push over 428, I'm just riding this momentum. And I'm nicely in the green on these contracts. So my mentality is that I'm not going to let this trade go red. And I know that 430 to 431 was a big area of resistance in the pre-market. So if we can get up to those levels, that's going to be an area where I want to take profits. And that's what happened. So we get a nice push up into 430. As you can see in the bottom part of the screen, I'm up about 14% on the contracts, only $3,835 to be in that trade. But I just want to see, can we get over that 430? And when we start to reject it, being that that was a big area of resistance, I ended up just taking profits and I sold all 5 contracts at $8.40. And now to get into the Tesla trade. So 271, 270, big areas of resistance. We broke below them. We had the pop back into it. So what was a big area of support now became resistance, rejecting that area below the 9 EMA and the VWAP. So I ended up taking the 267.50 puts, the first strike out of the money, 5 of them, just continuing to trade small size, and I got a fill price at $5.40. So we did have a little bit of a bounce, but as long as it stays below that 270, I still like the trade, and you can see that very quickly we end up getting back towards the lows. So I just want to see this get below 268. And that's exactly what happened. We did get below that 268. We got a little bit of movement to the downside, but you can see this is where I have poor execution because the moment it bounced, I ended up getting out of the trade. It did go a lot lower, but this is where sometimes I can play defense a little too aggressively, but I like the idea of being incredibly defensive because worst case scenario, I just may not execute great and it leads to a small loss or not making as much money as I wanted to. But really, I wanted to see this get below 268. Stay below it pretty aggressively. I don't like when there's a big red candle like that and then immediately follows with a bounce because sometimes that bounce can be pretty aggressive because I know I'm not the only one that's in this short. And if it kind of reclaims that 268, who knows, it could bounce on me. And I ended up just getting out of that trade. I didn't feel 100% comfortable. I wanted to see that wash out a little bit quicker. So I sold all 5 of those contracts for $5.50 for a very small win. And now I'm watching NVIDIA again because had the huge washout off the open, had that push, got back below VWAP in the 9 EMA. Maybe that's where some people would want to go short. And then look at this big squeeze candle. And I'm thinking that if we clear the highs, this has room because there is a big gap as far as prior day close where it closed at. So it could possibly fill that gap, work its way up to it. And then when I see such a strong squeeze candle like that, my mentality is that there's probably people that are short and starting to feel some pain. So as it got towards the highs, I ended up taking the 432.50 calls, continuing to trade small. Only took 5 of them, and I got filled at $8.10. It was having a little bit of an issue at that 432, but you see it's continuing to hold up very strong. So if it can clear out that 432, who knows? Maybe this could catch some upside momentum. And I'm kind of just hanging around flat on the contracts. So I want to see this start to go pretty quickly. If this were to get up into that 432 and reject it now, I'd have to get out because obviously it's not going quick. And those failed pushes higher can lead into aggressive pullbacks. But it just continues to kind of get up into that 432. So if it can clear it out, I feel pretty good. And look at that, an instant, almost dollar move in my favor. So now it's just about riding the momentum. And I know that I am nicely in the money on these contracts. So there's no reason to let these contracts go red. And there is a big squeeze move to the upside. Now, I don't know how far this is going to go, but you can see that there is a lot of green candles in a row. So I don't want to continue to hold this. Remember, I'm a scalper. I like to take those quick moves. And then if it sets up again, I can do so. But we got through that 432, just kind of struggling into that 434 a little bit. So if I start to see a pullback, I'm up very nicely on these contracts. I'm willing to take profits. The rejection of that 434 right there ended up just taking them. And then obviously you can see it goes a lot farther, but I'm okay with it. It's not a big deal. I'm a scalper. I'm okay with taking those quick moves. And then if it sets up again, I can do so. But I ended up selling those 5 contracts at $9.10 for a nice win. And 23 minutes into the open, had 2 nice wins on NVIDIA, kind of a botch trade on Tesla, but it's all right. I will gladly take being up $915 that quick off the open. So that was the trade recap. I appreciate you watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.